Wait, the CEOs of Anthropic and Google DeepMind just showed up at the G7 and made a stunning demand. The United States must lead a global AI coalition right now, or China will reshape the future of artificial intelligence for everyone. They're not asking politely. They are sounding the alarm. This happened in person at the biggest international summit, and the message was unmistakable. The free world needs a coalition. It needs it fast. And every nation must move as one. Here's what makes this absolutely wild. These two companies are fierce competitors. They're both racing to build the most advanced AI models on the planet. Their researchers poach each other's talent. Their funding rounds compete directly with each other. Yet they put all of that rivalry aside to warn world leaders together. AI governance can't be fragmented. It can't be every country making its own rules in isolation. When the CEO of one of the most trusted AI companies and the leader of Google's advanced AI research show up at a G7 meeting together, they are signaling something that transcends business competition. They are raising a red flag about a threat so serious that their rivalry takes a back seat. So what exactly did they propose? What would this coalition actually do? And here's where it gets interesting. To understand why two competing CEOs would make this move together, you need to see the chessboard they're looking at. Over the past 18 months, AI has exploded from a laboratory curiosity into something that touches nearly every industry on the planet. The computing power needed to build these systems is staggering. We are talking tens of billions of dollars in hardware, electricity, and research just to train a single leading model. That's a level of investment that only the richest companies and nations can afford. Right now, the race is fragmented. The United States has its own rules about how AI gets built and deployed. The European Union has the strictest regulations on the planet through their AI Act. They are moving first, but moving slowly. The United Kingdom has a light-touch approach. And then there's China, which has been quietly building its own AI ecosystem with government backing and far fewer restrictions. DeepSeek, for example, has become one of the world's most competitive AI companies in just a couple of years, with significant support from Beijing. Here's what keeps these tech leaders awake at night. If every country creates its own AI rules, companies will just migrate to wherever the rules are most lenient. Standards will fracture. Safety guardrails will vary wildly. And meanwhile, China, with government backing and strategic focus, could potentially pull ahead in AI capability without the same safety constraints that slow down Western development. That's the fear that brought these competitors together. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. What Anthropic and Google DeepMind are pushing for isn't a global government that controls AI, it's something more practical. They want the major democracies, the United States, Europe, the United Kingdom, Japan, Canada, Australia, to agree on baseline AI safety standards and transparency requirements. Think of it like international aviation. Every country doesn't build its own aviation rules from scratch. Instead, they agree on common standards for how planes should be built, how pilots should be trained, how air traffic is managed. A plane can fly anywhere because everyone follows the same safety handbook. That's what a United States-led coalition would attempt. Common safety benchmarks, shared standards for how to test whether an AI system is safe before it's released to the world. Agreements on transparency, so bad actors can't hide what their systems are capable of. Unified approaches to things like synthetic data, deepfakes, and information warfare through AI. The brilliance of the proposal is that it doesn't slow down innovation in democracies. If anything, it speeds it up. Companies don't have to rebuild their safety infrastructure for 17 different countries. They build it once, to international standards, and deploy globally. Anthropic and Google DeepMind both benefit because they can operate at scale without navigating a maze of conflicting regulations. But here's the part that matters most. In concrete terms, here's what a coalition would do. First, it would establish a shared framework for testing AI systems before release, something like stress tests that check whether a model can be tricked into harmful behavior. Right now, different countries test AI differently, and some don't test at all. A coalition would say, these are the baseline safety tests that all systems must pass before they are deployed to the public. Second, it would create transparency requirements. Companies would have to document what their models were trained on, how they were fine-tuned, what capabilities they have, and what limitations they have. This isn't about stealing secrets, it's about knowing what's out there in the world. If OpenAI releases a new model, governments want to know its capabilities before it gets into the hands of bad actors. Third, it would agree on guardrails for high-risk applications, things like using AI in military decision-making, or using it to generate synthetic media for information warfare, not banned necessarily, but regulated so there's oversight. Fourth, it would coordinate on export controls. Right now, the United States limits selling advanced chips to China, but that policy exists in isolation. A coalition would make those restrictions stick because all major democracies would enforce them together. Otherwise, a company from the United Kingdom or Japan could just sell the chips that America won't. And this is where it gets complicated. You might be thinking, hasn't the world tried this before, setting international standards for dangerous technology? The answer is yes, and it's been complicated. Take nuclear weapons. The world has non-proliferation treaties, inspection regimes, and agreements that have held for 70 years. But you also have North Korea, Pakistan, and India doing their own thing. Take biosecurity. We have international agreements about biological weapons, but they are incredibly hard to verify. You can't easily inspect someone's laboratory from another country. Here's what's different with AI. You can't hide a large AI training run. It requires enormous electricity and specialized chips. If China or any nation is training a massive model, you can watch it through satellite imagery and power consumption data. That's actually easier to verify than nuclear programs or weapons labs. A coalition could put monitoring in place that would catch violations relatively quickly, but the old agreements failed because countries had competing interests. A nuclear power wanted to build weapons. A small nation wanted to develop biotech. With AI, the interests are more aligned, at least among democracies. Nobody wants China to monopolize AI capability, but nobody in the West wants a total freeze on progress either. So theoretically, a coalition could work better. But there's still one massive problem nobody's talking about. Here's why Anthropic and Google DeepMind sounded the alarm at the G7. If the free world doesn't move first and unified, China doesn't have to follow the coalition's rules. While America, Europe, and their allies are negotiating standards and slowing down slightly to implement safety systems, China could potentially accelerate. They could deploy AI systems without the same guardrails. They could use AI for surveillance, social control, and military advantage, while democracies are still debating the ethical framework. This isn't paranoia, it's happening now. Chinese AI companies are already ahead in some areas. DeepSeek released models recently that matched or exceeded American systems at a fraction of the cost. Tencent and Alibaba are developing AI systems specifically built for surveillance and state control. If this continues without international coordination, China could own the future of artificial intelligence while Western democracies are still writing their rulebooks. The other implication is about innovation. If democracies create conflicting standards, companies get locked into fragmented markets. Development slows, costs explode. Meanwhile, China with unified government direction moves fast. That's not speculation, it's how telecommunications, semiconductors, and aerospace have played out. Whoever coordinates fastest tends to lead the industry. So this coalition isn't just about safety. It's about whether the free world stays competitive in the technology that will define the next 50 years. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So how do world leaders actually build something like this? It starts with one country, in this case, the United States, proposing the framework. That country says, here's what we think AI safety standards should look like. Then other democracies review it and negotiate. The United Kingdom might push for slightly lighter regulations. The European Union might push for stricter guardrails. Japan and Canada have their own interests. You negotiate until there's rough agreement. Then you codify it. Sometimes it's a formal treaty that countries sign and ratify through their legislatures, slow but binding. Sometimes it's a memorandum of understanding, faster, less binding, but still meaningful. For AI, because things are moving so fast, it'll probably start as a memorandum and get upgraded to a treaty later. Then comes enforcement. That's the hard part. You create an international body, maybe under the United Nations, maybe standalone, that monitors compliance. Countries submit documentation about their AI programs. Inspections happen. If someone violates the agreement, you have consequences. Sanctions, trade restrictions, tech embargoes. The United States has done this before with things like aviation, maritime law, and environmental treaties. It works when countries believe the alternative, uncontrolled competition, is worse. And right now, every major democracy is starting to believe that about AI, which brings us to the moment we are actually in right now. Anthropic and Google DeepMind lit the fuse at the G7. Now comes the hard part, where the world leaders actually move. This isn't going to be fast. Governments move slowly. The European Union will want the strictest rules. The United States will want the lightest touch that's still binding. China will either ignore the coalition or create a competing standard. But here's what changes in your world if this works. The AI you use every day becomes safer. Companies have to be transparent about what these systems can and can't do. The technology develops in the open rather than behind locked doors. The risks, and they are real risks, of AI being used for mass surveillance or information warfare get harder to execute. And if it doesn't work, if democracies stay fragmented and China accelerates alone, then we're probably heading toward a future where two AI ecosystems exist. One in the free world, one in authoritarian regimes, and they are incompatible. That's not necessarily a disaster, but it means innovation splinters and the West potentially loses its technological edge. So follow this story. Watch whether the G7 actually moves forward with these proposals. Watch whether the United States pushes hard in negotiations. Watch whether Europe agrees to less bureaucracy for the sake of unity. Because the next few months of diplomacy could determine who leads artificial intelligence for the rest of the century. Thanks for watching, and follow for more daily AI news.